Wrongly applied architectural style will be a disaster for your project. Let's discuss how to make the right decision. First of all, it is orchestration. Orchestration is primarily about centralization. So you have a single orchestrator, a single entity which manages everything in your system, or probably your business processes. And of course, you have a few services which are managed by this service. For choreography, it is rather about decentralization. So you don't have a single entry point for your processes, but you rather define a set of rules, and every your service needs to know what it has to do when it sees some events or like some triggers. Understand better choreography, we also need to understand two event state patterns, which bring to slightly different behavior. For example, notification event is about the state when we have, for example, a new user and we want to inform the other part of the world that we have a new one. We inform only about identifier and nothing more, so we don't have any extra data. And if our notification service wants to send an email, it needs to go to a user service to make a request and to get a response here. Eventually, email is sent. Another case is event carried state transfer pattern. Here our events contain some state, and our providers of these events have to understand what exactly they need to add to this state to allow downstream services do their work without any extra request. It creates slightly more problems, but it is just an alternative for our choreography. Let's try to compare these two approaches and start from communication maintenance. Of course, for both of approaches, communication maintenance is more or less good. For example, from orchestration perspective, we have a single place where we decide what service should be called. And from choreography perspective, this logic is distributed around our system, but at the same time, it is still pretty simple rules that we see an event and might request some more data. The second thing is control and monitoring. And here our winner is definitely orchestration, just because you have a single entry point into your monitoring. It is your orchestrator, and it helps you to understand what exactly going on right now in your system. And also you might stop your processes, you might pause them, so on and so forth. For choreography, it is definitely harder to do and harder to implement. The third thing is readiness for complex processes. And the single winner here, without any doubts, is orchestration, just because it is a kind of pain point and main disadvantage of choreography. If you need to build pretty complex chain of actions to do it in pretty reliable way, you have to carry about a lot of things which orchestrator resolves by design. The fourth thing is scalability. It is pretty interesting because modern orchestrators are pretty scalable and designed to be cloud native, but logically scalability is better for choreography approach because you can remove components from your system and it will just stop reacting on some events, and you can downscale your system or particular components, you can upscale them, any kind of scaling you wish. If you have an orchestrator, you have to scale up this orchestrator definitely because otherwise will stay your bottleneck. The last but not least is loose coupling. So you can imagine that if you have a user service which needs to know about all downstream components needs to be called when the user is created, actually creates not really good dependencies between your services because they are at the same time not really natural ones. If you implement choreography, your user service just publishes an event, and other systems which know about your event, they might request some extra data and do some work independently, like as in natural world. They react on your events. The last thing that I want to share with you for today is a few examples to help you to understand when exactly you have to apply each of these architectural styles. And here we start from an example for orchestration. So let's imagine that we have a client which allows us to sign up a user, and this user clicked this button and maybe filled a few fields. So we started this kind of process. Our user service was called and it created a user in our database, but a process definitely is not finished yet because it is starting right here on step number 3. So we trigger our orchestrator to launch our sign-up process. And this sign-up process, as you can see, consists of a few small steps. For example, we have to send an email, we have to wait for sign-up confirmation, we have to start a trial here, and we have to inform about this trial period. So pretty straightforward thing, you probably saw it previously in some projects. When we have to finish the first step, we send an email, and our orchestrator, technically, by the way, it might be embedded into our user service. So it might be standalone or embedded into a specific service. So it calls our notification service and send some information to request to send a confirmation email. And when this email is sent, notification service provides confirmation, everything, this part of his work is already done. So our orchestrator goes through the next arrow, this one, and the next step is to wait for sign-up confirmation. The user opens his email client and click this link, so he confirms or she confirms the sign-up, and it brings us to the state when we confirm sign-up in our sign-up process. So this step is confirmed now. The second part of this process is about starting trial period. So here we see that we on step number 8 we start trial subscription, and our subscription service, which is responsible for this part of our business, is actually doing this thing and eventually confirm that the trial period is started. So we have to inform our user about that. That's why we go through this arrow, and our orchestrator brings us to the next step. Eventually, we see that our orchestrator triggers again our notification server, and we send informational email to our user, and just our notification service confirms that this part of work is done, and it brings us to the end of our business process. So pretty simple in general, but it requires a lot of extra steps to prepare. So we have to define our sign-up process, we have to have an orchestrator, and it might be embedded into a particular service, but in general looks fine. The second example is about choreography. It is relatively simple, but the case for which we are applying this choreography approach is simpler as well. Because as I mentioned previously, if you want to work with simple processes, simple coordination, choreography is probably your choice. Here we have another example when our client, this guy, wants to upload a file to our file service. When this file is uploaded, file service informs the world around the service via a particular topic that a new file is already available. Let's imagine that we have a thumbnail generator, which is responsible for thumbnails, of course. This thumbnail generator sees in this particular topic that we have a new file. It requests some more details which might be needed, and maybe request this data through the link from binary storage. And after thumbnail is generated, it publishes either to this binary storage or use file service API. It doesn't matter actually. And when thumbnail generator has done, at the last step, it publishes a message to another topic, which is about thumbnail generation events. So our notification service sees this event and forward this message to the client, so client might be updated in real time. So here we have this kind of chain, pretty simple process. We will be fine even with choreography. So it was about orchestration and choreography, and that's it for today. If you like all this stuff, click subscribe button and like button, of course. I believe you remember that the bell button is yours. And also I am working on online course which is about evolution of cloud native applications, so you will find the link in the description, and also you will find the link to this board there as well. So it was your Dev Tower. See you in the next one.